Like what you're listening to? Don't forget to like, share, or follow our From the Mount podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Mount, a podcast from the campus of Mount Paran Christian School. I'm your host, Steve Kyle, back with you. Episode, I don't even know. We're in the 60s or something like that, which seems like a lot unless you're a regular podcaster, and then it doesn't seem like so many. But thank you for joining us. And if you haven't, like I've said a number of times, if you haven't followed, or shared our podcast with your friends and family that you recognize, you're like, I've got friends and family who need help. And you want to recommend this. You're like, I'm the better parent than they are. Help them out, right, Mo? Help them out by giving them the link to these episodes. But I'm thrilled to be in the studio again with turning into maybe the most. Well, we've already exceeded the top guest already.
She's a co-host by this point.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll take co-host title.
Here's recently, it's been that. I don't think anybody's been on the podcast more as a guest. And I'll put that in air quotes if you're just listening to it, because we've talked about everything. When I was talking to a coworker recently about this, and I was like, yeah, we've talked about parenting, the Holy Spirit, her testimony. We've Hebraic wedding. We've literally discussed, and today's a brand new subject and something I know that you're super passionate about, knowledgeable about, and I think could be one of the more important podcast discussions we have because of the content. So with us, as you probably saw in the show description, we have Isom Aiken back with us, and this is going to be interesting because you know. New York Times bestselling author. We've talked about that and all the accolades and money that comes with that. Ha ha ha.
Wait, where's the money?
I know, and of course, wife and mom and speaker, like all the things you do. But in your very first episode, you talked about your testimony. But some people, if they didn't listen to that episode, maybe don't know that you were. And I'll use these words, and I think I've read this in other places. An elite Division I All-American athlete at LSU. I mean, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's going to, I think, speak directly into the subject we're going to talk about. But we not only do we have Mo in studio as well, but we have our very own Mike Walker, who's our director of athletics here. Mike, welcome back. You've been on already. Welcome back to the podcast. And I've never seen you play. There's not highlight tapes of you on YouTube, so I'm not going to throw around words like elite college athlete. Yeah,
not elite.
Because
you say elite, Mike.
You can
stand up for yourself.
You can.
Hey,
no. You might be.
You can be elite at the level you're at.
Correct. You can do that. Yeah. But you serve as director of athletics. But not only that, you're the father. Who has kids playing college, sports, which is important. A son who's playing college football. You played college basketball. Cool. You've coached it. So I think your insight's going to be great. Now, the only one really in the room, who has I played elite high school sports, and maybe elite's pushing it. I played above average high school sports. Okay, played intramurals in college, and I don't share this very often. Liberty, at the time I went to Liberty University, they had walk-on tryouts. So they literally, anybody on the campus had one day you could show up at the Vine Center where they did. They had all their coaching staff in the bleachers. You got a number. You basically went 3-on-3, shooting drills, all that stuff. They stood in the top, and they left. Then they said, hey, in like 3 days, we're going to post a list 1 to 10. We're only taking the top guy. Is it. We're only taking the one on the top.
Oh, 1.
And that's it. And they had 1 through 10. And, of course, if the top one couldn't do it, they posted the list. I was number 3 on the list.
Yes, top 10.
The top guy, they called the top guy. He got in trouble and dismissed from the university, and they went to the next guy who got it.
1 away.
And I was 1 away. That was my freshman year, and that was pretty much it after that.
Then that guy got mysterious food poisoning.
Yeah, it's weird. He got stabbed in the dark, which is really weird on a safe campus. I never made it to that. I played some intramurals throughout. I enjoyed it. And, of course, Liberty was early Big South. Yeah. And they were not, and right now they're Conference USA, and they're top of the Conference USA.
Co-champs, yep.
Yeah, and
they've come a long way from Steve Kyle being number 3.
Listen, they wouldn't even let me in the gym I have to talk my way into buying tickets to games now. But that's my elite sports. But the subject we're going to talk about, I've been 30 years in education, a long time, and I think this is one of the more pivotal discussions to have. And it's this idea. We're talking about athletics. We're talking about sport, and really, sport is God. This conversation. And of course, I mean, God, little g, sport as idol. It's a big deal, and I think you guys being a part of this is going to be, So just really quick, I would love, Mo, for you. I've just shared a little bit. I want to hear your perspective, high school Mo's perspective of sport. I would like you in a little bit, and again, try to, keep it obviously the Reader's Digest version of it.
Right.
But I would love your perspective, the motivation through that point, because I'm going to want the same from you, Mike, and your parents' kind of perspective on sport that. Because obviously getting to where you got to just doesn't happen. It's not happenstance. It's not like you happen to be walking by and they were like, "Hey, you look like you might be a good, goalie, soccer keeper for. Why don't you come?" Could you give any, and including me, some of that perspective and insight?
Sure.
From a few years ago.
Yes. So I will start by saying, all due respect to my mom. My dad is passed, but my mom, who I know listens back to this podcast. I love you, Heidi.
Come on.
This is, all honor and respect there. My parents were very supportive, but I will be honest. When I was 9 years old, I was athletic. I was competitive from the jump. Just as a little kid, and did a few different things, gymnastics. I grew out of that. I grew 7 inches in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I'm a tall woman. I did tennis, horseback riding, various things, but soccer was really where I found my niche. I was very good naturally and very athletic. And at 9 years old, I remember my neighbor, Devon Prescott, he shared that he had gotten a full ride scholarship to a university. I think he went to Notre Dame, if I remember right. And that was my first introduction in any regard to a scholarship seems legitimate. So you're going to college, they're paying for it fully. You get to play sport all the way here. And I remember telling my parents at 9, if you will support me in my athletics, I will get a full college scholarship. I was very just driven naturally.
Sure. Yeah.
And a lot of the young athletes or parents of young athletes that are listening to this, there is some intrinsic, natural, competitive, athletic drive in them. And so my parents, we continued on that journey with soccer. I sort of stopped all other sports very, very early comparatively to most. I knew I wanted to be a goalkeeper specifically. I was the one telling my dad, take me to the boys training session, the 18-year-old, 19-year-old boys when I'm 12. I was intrinsically driven to be the best at what I was doing.
Got it.
That's a great quality.
Sure.
But unbridled, that's a dangerous quality. Because then I'm moving through the ranks. I'm making the next caliber of team. I'm making the Olympic development program teams. We're traveling city to city, state to state. I'm traveling internationally. We're playing in Sweden. We're playing in Italy and Germany, traveling all around in youth sport. And it was wonderful in many ways. At the same regard, because my enthusiasm towards it was so unbridled in a sense.
Sure.
My parents were very supportive. I'm sure this caused tension for my mom specifically, but my dad was kind of the driver of my athletics. There wasn't that regulation of, hey, this is taking over our family's life. Hey, you're not in church. We're not in church on Sundays.
Yeah.
You're not involved in any sort of youth group. You're not. The demands of practice, the demands of travel, I can't even fathom the financial strain it put on my family. My parents never let me know that.
Sure.
But I feel like sometimes because I was excellent at something, because I was excelling and standing out, and because I was moving in that direction of this greater goal, there was a lot of support, but not a lot of boundaries around that. And so soccer really owned our family. My poor sister, we're still continuing to reconcile and grow in relationship because she probably felt invisible for a lot of my childhood. In fact, many places she went, "Oh, you're the soccer girl's sister. Are you a soccer player? Are you?" It's how our family was known. And I believe in maturity and in age, and over time realized what a devastating toll that ultimately took on my family. For many different reasons. And we're, I don't want to keep talking here, but it's just interesting when I look back because it was my drive. It was awesome in so many regards. In the same regard, it wasn't awesome for the family health. It was not always awesome for my and my dad's relational health. If I played a great game, I was daddy's best girl in the front seat. We're getting ice cream. If I allowed weak goals, I would get the silent treatment. My dad would stay down on the side of the field that I was as a goalkeeper just by me yelling, barking out instruction, direction. When I scored, I did not look to, when I was scored on, have I let my team down? My coach, I looked to my dad in fear. Like I haven't measured up. So there were a lot of undercurrents of stress, of perfectionism. But then a lot of these overriding factors of everyone praising us, success, trophies, awards, is kind of a bit of a beast.
It is. And so I like that because I'm going to turn to you, Mike. But you and we're going to get back to this because you actually pointed out something where, you share this idea that, hey, I had this intrinsic, really God-given drive because I think it's there. But of course, we live in a world where even those things are broken so and need to be redeemed. And oftentimes as a child, in kids, we lack the maturity and ability to go, wait a minute, how much is too much?
Yeah. What are the guardrails on this?
Exactly. And that's where, and again, I don't know your mom. They're obviously lovely people. Your dad, of course, I know is passed, but your mom, no doubt. They've got an amazing daughter. So in no way, but it's often like with my own kids, there's only so much regulation they can do. It's me going, hey, we gotta dial that back. So Mike, what was your experience? Obviously, that brought you, sport was a big part of obviously your growing up, but that, was it the same thing, intrinsic motivation coupled with driven parents, or just, my parents are actually indifferent and they give us a little snippet of that really quick.
Yeah. Unique perspective because my dad was a pastor. So, church 3 times a week. And I'm just old enough that the pursuit of basketball for me was I was pursuing my own opportunities at the outdoor courts, at the YMCA. Like I tried out for an AAU team one time. There's like 100 kids in the gym. And so this is like late 90s.
Yeah, this is a different time.
And so
for sure.
AAU meant a totally different thing. And so we were, I just loved it. And there was another kid in my town. We were best friends. And we literally had a place every night of the week that we could go play. And so gym rat became just a new normal. And I was pursuing camps on my own, playing on my own. So it wasn't a lot of the same structured like financial investment.
Yeah.
It was just me loving it and spending as much time as I could doing it. And then similarly, I found out like, wait, I can keep doing this. Like there's a place where I could like go beyond high school and like continue to play.
Yeah.
What? It's a small Bible college. Wait, yeah, that's cool. But wait, they have a basketball team and they want me to be on it.
Yeah.
So I'm in. Yeah. So that's kind of how that went.
Yeah, but obviously there was motivation and drive, but it was obviously just this. Hey, I'm going to find. Now it was a slightly different time because you are older, and that believe it or not that makes it. She was like, she went. In case anybody's watching on YouTube, clearly we're the older ones in the room. And we are, but here's the reality. It's the difference matters with the vote because there is a vastly different even today than when you were in school.
Exactly.
It's different and so hyper focused on this kind of area, even different than when you were there and definitely different than when you and I were growing up. And this wasn't youth travel sports year round wasn't really a popular thing when I was growing up, even for the kids who were elite athletes. That was few and far between. We played in like Gus Macker tournaments.
I played at those. Yeah,
those were the things we did.
Yep.
To just get better and get exposure. But it wasn't the world that you had even, and then certainly the world that we live in today. And but here's the reality: sports aren't bad. Sports are great, and not only that, they're a part of. I would venture to say almost every family who's listening has some connection or tie to sports at some point. What's our numbers here at Mount Paran? What's the participation average for families at Mount Paran, roughly?
Just under 80% of students are on at least one of our sports teams.
And that's across the board from the grades we offer sports.
Yeah, from the years that they're allowed
like
to
fifth
start
grade.
playing.
Yeah. And then in some grades and levels, that percentage is even higher.
Yeah,
right?
And what we're in right now, spring season would be the highest. Just we have the most offerings, and so just participation numbers are
super high. So you've got 80+% of our own people. And that's really of kids who are able to go. So it's actually a higher percentage of students just overall here are involved in athletics just here at Mount Paran.
Right.
Which is, that's awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
And again, I hope people don't walk away from this thinking, we're about to make sports satanic and we can't. Not at all. Man, sport is so key. The question is, at what point does something good become ultimate? Or what time does something good become that idol? And that is, I think, the discussion I think that we have here, because the issue is not sports, right? The issue, and I think you had mentioned this when we were kind of talking pre-show. It's when sport becomes like an idol,
idolatry.
Yeah, yeah, and we don't use that term casually, loosely, or like kind of tongue in cheek, like, oh yeah, like it's
uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable word.
It is,
if you're in it.
But it's the appropriate, accurate,
right.
and you can make a strong biblical argument. Like you could put it up there with the idols that God spoke vehemently against, and you could throw sport today on that pedestal and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I want to hear a little bit about that, and when we talk about that, but I want to give some data really quick. I put some data on this thing, and I think it's important we do this. And again, this is general data across the country that we've got 45 million kids participate in sports in the U.S. Great, by the way, which I think is awesome. It says the kids or youth sport industry generates $15 billion. That's a crazy amount of money. But here's a couple interesting things. 70% of kids quit sports by age 13. And the data, and this isn't at Mount Paran or is due to burnout or pressure. They're experiencing so much of it that 70% are said, I'm out, like or their arm is, broken or they just can't do it. But this one, and I believe this number is probably true for even here potentially. 70% of parents believe their child could play college sports, like they're at the level to play. Now, I've never played it. College sports, but less than 6% of high school athletes actually do. And when you think of those numbers, that's crazy to me. When you think about that, and then over half of kids say parents push them too hard in sports. Now those are big deals. So I want to throw this question out there: why have sports and youth sports in particular become so intense, high pressured into this level? I want to talk about why you guys think the why. Why have we gotten to this place? That it's different than from when you and I were growing up, even different, from when you were. Why do you think it's gotten there? Why are parents more intense about this than they used to be?
Yeah. I'll take a little bit of a hot take here, because having lived globally and just being familiar with the global church, the idolatry of sport, which we have to be really, I love how frank you put it, because that is what it is. It is idolatry. We read the scriptures and we're like, well, we're not, worshiping a golden calf or, laying food before an altar like they may be in this country or that country, and idol worship. No, you have to understand the way it iterates itself in the Western world and in the United States. Look from, professional level down, from the worship show that is the Super Bowl all the way down. It's influenced this form of idolatry that takes the attention of man, the energy, the finances, the love, the devotion. I've seen grown men manifest in rage about wins or losses.
Yeah.
It is truly an idol. And I think having seen things in other nations and other places, I think it's unique that sport is and increasingly becomes idol and idolatrous in a nation that has the privilege and the ability for it too. What I mean by that is, we love this one show in our home, The Wild Brothers. It's on, Angel Studios.
Yeah.
These four
I've
boys.
heard of it,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it. But
they grew up in the most remote parts of Papua New Guinea on the mission field with their parents, immersed in adventure, in survival, in mission, in focus, in passion that was directed towards advancing the kingdom, because that is the way their parents had guided that, right?
Yeah.
The idolatry of sport's not really on their radar, because I believe this competitive nature, this hungry nature, this desirous nature that is in us that can make for great athletes, actually channeled rightly, can advance the kingdom with great intensity and power.
Absolutely.
And when you're in positions and places that's channeled properly, you don't deal with the manifestation of idolatry that we see here in the Western world. But because we are a culture of comfort, of excess, of distraction, of entertainment, that becomes sport. And it's good. Sport's not bad. Hello, it's great for health. It's great for teamwork. It's great for competition. But to me, sometimes it feels like, and again, this is a bit of a hot take, and we could go back and forth on this some, but it feels like the counterfeit version of these things inside of us that are meant to be charging us forward as like mission-minded individuals.
Sure.
It's the counterfeit version that sort of satisfies that need, but doesn't bear the fruit or result. I mean, you read the numbers and the statistics. There's burnout and there's people walking away. And so there's this want in us to exert these things that are wired in us. And in a comfortable, privileged Western world, it often takes the shape of sport.
Yeah.
But that only intensifies and compounds in problematic ways when it's ultimately channeled toward an idol versus channeled toward the Lord.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, we could.
Yeah.
That's a big take.
That is, and that's interesting. So, Mike, what? Same question. Why do you think we've gotten to this place that back when you and I were? This was the '90s kids, and we were playing sports, and it was mainly for fun. Why do you think it's gotten to this level that I even look at after 30, and I've seen it transition over these years. You've done the same. Why do you think it's gotten to the place that it has?
Yeah, started teaching and coaching in like 2001 and then became an athletic director. And so you see kind of this progression of some things and you start thinking, okay, what has changed? Opportunities to play are harder to obtain at the highest levels. So if you're looking just from a depth chart perspective, this guilt can creep in as a parent where I'm looking at, okay, well, that family is doing all that and their kid is reaching this level and I'm not doing any of that. Am I cheating my kid?
Yeah.
So there's this there's this competition for these spots. And then besides that, there's like for the top spots, it's more competitive, but for any spot, it's actually way easier. Back to my point about AAU when I tried out, like there's a whole gym full of kids for like one or two spots. So the revenue in terms of like you can pay for the word elite next to your kid's name. So there's like a status part.
Oh my goodness.
And that's a symbol for the parents to say, my son is on the travel team where he's ranked 13th, or what level team he plays on. So, why has youth sports become so intense? Because it's a business, and it's comparative and it's competitive. But then it's also intense because the highest levels of it, the one travel team that actually is the team in the city, or even the college freshman is becoming way more skilled. Maybe not necessarily more athletic, but the combination of athleticism and skill, because they've been doing it for so long at many different levels, you start seeing competition even here at Mount Paran Christian for 5th and 6th grade, where they've been, the best player on their travel team. And now they all come together and they've all been maybe the top 4 or 5 kids on their travel team, but now they're coming together and competing for one team and playing time on one team. Then again, when they get to high school, and then certainly for varsity depth charts, and I don't think we're going to get into the sports specialization conversation, but in terms of sport as worship, you are chasing this certain level of position that you think you need to have. Like if you're a shortstop, you start looking around the baseball field like, hey, there's 3 other shortstops. I got to get an advantage. Mm-hmm. So what am I willing to sacrifice to give my kid that opportunity and that advantage?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where it starts and why it's changed so much, because the competition for these spots. And then I'll add one more caveat in just the social media culture where everything is highlight driven and ranking driven.
Yes.
And so you almost can chase that you chase that as more important as actually being good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just want to be liked, followed.
So heaven forbid, just enjoying the sport that you're playing.
It's crazy. Stop that talk. Here's the reality, and that's all gone, because I think both of you touch on so many significant things that I hope, if you're listening, that these are going to begin to resonate with you, that we are not saying your kid should never play sports, or this is just a really important discussion that if you've never thought about or had, it's that important, I think, as families we have. Mo, you had mentioned this idea, I think we're created to worship. God made us to worship. Of course, pre-fall, that was him, and that was that intimate relationship. Post-fall, due to pride, which has a significant part in this whole why has sport become that, we've chosen other things. We've sought other idols that we've placed on this place. God made us to worship, and we're going to worship something.
But the beauty of sports, sorry to cut you off, is that when you learn how to do it the right way, it is worship. God designed us to make the most of what he's given to us. And when you give it back to him with the right posture,
sure,
and that becomes your initial motivation, it can be worship.
Yeah. Well, it's the way you worship. It's not what you worship.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the distinction is right now, it's what we're worshiping. It's this as opposed to, you're right. I think you can watch an elite athlete and go, man, there's a gift. There's a reason I wasn't an elite athlete. There's a reason you were a D. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to do it at 5'2" and 60 pounds. Mm-hmm. You probably wouldn't have been an elite, but God gave you height and agility and things he didn't give everybody. And so,
and drive and passion and the combination of all that.
And that's a beautiful, you look at that and think, well, that's God given and rightfully ordered in the that can be wow, that is a spectacle to see. What a level of I do often look at elite athletes and think that is God has gifted that is a gift from God to watch them do what they do when everything is rightly ordered in the right place. And I think pride is another big part of the reason. Pride has always been an issue, but of course what's happened is, I think, social media and media and marketing and TV and ESPN have raised the level of this, because we're being fed every day with what's I didn't know what the kid in the next street over was doing. Right. I didn't know what the kid in the next town was doing. Now these kids see what the kids are all over the world, and it's like, I got to be that's me. I'm the man. I'm the guy. I'm next. Yeah. And so there's this drive motivation. And again, there's nothing wrong with, I'm not saying social media and things are bad, but those are what, but I think they're great things to begin to think about. If you're listening as a parent, I hope you listen to what Mo and Mike said and what we're talking about, and start asking yourself, what am I after? What are we doing as a family, and what are we pursuing, and why are we pursuing this thing? Because when sports, I think, have become an idol, and again, I think that's not too harsh a word.
Yeah, I think it's always really key, and I would just say this to any parent listening right now, trying to assess, okay, are we doing this in a healthy way? Has this become idol worship for us? You can always discern by the fruit. Idolatry is always going to demand more and more and more of you. And the fruit that it bears is going to look like compromise. It's going to bear pride. It's going to bear covetousness and comparison. It's going to be a thief of joy. And yet it's this machine we often feel compelled to keep feeding, even though because it requires we do to keep up, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, worship of the Lord is going to bear different fruit or things being rightly aligned. Again, sport is not bad, but my husband grew up one of 6 kids. None of them could be the one kid with the dominant sport. All of our money goes to that. No, there were 6 of them. So he loved sport. He coaches it here at Mount Paran, but it was very balanced and healthy. And they were sure to be in church on Sunday, and they were growing. It was of enjoyment. It brought joy. It brought fun. It brought connection. It was never the rat race that idolatry really bears when it becomes this constant climbing, constant proving. And so there are very different ways that the joy and the fun of sport can be stewarded, and it will make evident, has this become idol worship? Has this become idolatrous in my life? Or am I keeping this balanced in light of my greater call, my assignment, my purpose, and my child's call and assignment and purpose?
Yeah. An idol, just so, and I kind of put this definition in my notes, is again, simplified definition, anything that takes this rightful place of God, anything that takes God's rightful place in our hearts as a focus and and when you think about that, you have to ask yourself, and I think you just laid it out, when you start thinking about, well, how do I know what has the rightful place in my heart? And you start looking at those fruits, and you start looking at, okay, look at your habits, look at your finances, look at your where is the attention, focus, and worship going? Yeah. And you start going, wow, I'm 10 times more in my youth sports than I give to the church and God's kingdom. My time is spent 5 to 1 at sporting events and travel and practice than it is in the Word or in at prayer. Church. In prayer, it's more time in a coaching manual or playbook than God's Word, and it's that kind of thing that is. Then you start going, okay, well, maybe, where is sport as an idol for me? And that's what we're talking about when we say that. And I think your point about it being the fruit. Boy, that's a huge,
There's fruit. There's also like symptoms. If you look at some of the things that might be examples of going too far would be, identity is, is your young athlete starting to identify connected with their performance? Like, is my worth tied to my performance?
Yeah.
And you mentioned priorities. Is your child's schedule taking priority over your family schedule, your work schedule? Like, what are we giving up to pursue this thing that, by the way, might be becoming my child's identity?
Right.
Yeah.
And then too often people working in sports skip the energy factor. I mean, we have some students here at Mount Paran that are literally playing 6, 7, 8 games a week. Yeah. And so, you're playing for your school, you're playing for travel, maybe 2 travel teams, then going to a trainer. And so even looking at, I think that leads directly to that burnout stat.
Right.
Where, does your kids still love it? And I, as I even coached my own kids coming through sports, you got to be careful as the dad, part of that statistics, who's pushing them like, hey, you got to give more effort. Like, what are you sitting on the couch for? Get off the video game. Like, you say you have these goals, but your habits don't match your goals. So as the dad, you feel like you want to drive that, but, then you look at their energy level, like, do they still love doing it?
Right.
Or am I starting to love it more than they do?
Yeah.
So their identity, their, the priority in the family, and then, your athlete's just energy level to do it at a pace that still keeps their love of the game engaged.
Emotional health around it with that. Yeah.
Even to speak to that, I was going to say, I didn't touch on this in my synopsis, but as a former D1 athlete, number one, a huge part of my testimony was through youth, playing sport, all of that, caught up in that, aiming towards the college scholarship, aiming towards the next level. I developed a vicious eating disorder. It was very disordered. I would, be damaging my body and then working out 6, 7, 8 hours a day, logging it, literally tracking calories in, calories out, became so fixated on anything and everything connected to my body, my body's performance, my sport. And when I couldn't, maintain that, I turned to diet pills, energy pill, these alternative means to keep up. So much of my identity, again, my worth up when there were victories, way down when there were losses. That all contributed. And, by the grace of God, I received measures of healing as I moved through college sports still. But I don't know any of my D1 friends, soccer, football, gymnastics, different sports that I've spoken to after college that did not wrestle with an identity crisis when suddenly that sport, boom, last game, it's done. I remember it wasn't my last soccer game because I went out for the men's football team as a kicker. When I got that final no from Coach Miles and it was the end of the line, it was the end of the story, eligibility was done, I remember thinking, it's been since I was 6 years old. Like,
what do I do now?
What do you mean sport is done?
Yeah.
It really took time. So that's why when I talk to young people now, my biggest thing for them always is, hey, explore all the different gifts and skills on your life. Love sport, play it, do your best. If you're driven, go for it. But what else are you passionate about? What other gifts has God knit into you? Cultivating a more whole individual should be the ultimate aim, because you said the stats, what was it? 94% of people, there's going to be a last game. They're not going on to college or they're not going on to the pros. That's a wrap. Now what?
Yeah.
And when something has been an idol, that is very jarring.
It is.
It's very jarring.
Yeah. That's hard. And so, Mike, I think you touch on some great things, and I'm going to just quickly, because I think it's really important. I'm not going to really comment, but just you had talked about, and Mo, I'm glad you shared the identity portion, because if anybody, again, I can talk about what I read, but if anybody knows, hey, I became my sport. When you play at that level, I think the higher the level, the more your identity, the danger is to have your identity tied to it. But I think identity can be tied. So if you're wondering about is sport becoming an idol in my family or for my kids or for our home, one is your kid's identity tied to it. Family life revolving around it, emotional health. And you had even mentioned this kind of in your opening, like wins, joy, losses are like anger, despair, or as a parent, are we feeding that with the silent treatment with the kid in the back, with the, you could have done better, I'm disappointed in you, it shouldn't be that way. If you're that way, where your mood, or like you said, grown men reach a place of rage and anger, it's an idol. Like dial it back, champ. Like you got to get a life. And I'm a guy who's passionate about my sports. So, and this is one you didn't have parents living through their kids. I think it's a big one. Dad never made it. So now he's vicariously living through the kid who might.
Right.
You can do it. You can do what Dad never did, or I did it and you're going to do it too, or you're going to be better than me, or you're going to be as good as me, or you're going to whatever else is out there. And then of course, I saw this and just there was a whole paragraph on it when I was doing some reading that, the inconsistency of the throwing up a thanks to God. But yet, you're like, oh, my kid says he thanks God for his talent and ability. But how does he live the rest of his life? Yeah. Does the rest of his life, is that reflective of God's glory?
Or the actual game he just played.
Yeah. Or the game he just played. Got a red card,
yeah.
Whatever. Cursed out 3 people, but he's like, man, thank God for my talent. Like whatever it might be. Those are this idea. If you're listening, you might go, well, so yeah, it might be an idol. Who cares? Okay, well, I want to talk about the who cares part, because what if, because I want to look at the opposite side of what we already mentioned. Sports aren't bad. Sports are not evil. Sport is, I think, something given by God, and the talent and ability given to athletes is given by God for that sport. Your drive, you said it, your drive and kind of this intrinsic motivation, He made you that way. And honestly, you look now at the person you've become too, and how you're using that same drive and intrinsic motivation to do all this kingdom work too, because that's also led to being on the road and mission work and living in an RV, and that's not for the faint of heart or the not motivated for sure. So you look at that, but let's talk about really quickly though, what is the good, the flip side of that? Maybe the reordered perspective on the redeemed view of sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the upside. I don't want people to listen and go, all they did was just badmouth sports the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a gift by God, what are the things my kids can take or should be taking from this?
Mm-hmm.
Either one of you.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you both have stuff.
I'll start, man. It's worth the strive. You know, God built us to build, to strive, to like challenge ourselves. To most point, sometimes it's misdirected.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if we go deep into like the philosophy of sport, even for me as an athletic director here at Mount Paran, like we got to do it well. We talked about this on the last podcast. Like all runners run, right? So we're not running in a different way. Like
yeah.
The prize is still the same. Like we're chasing, if you're a lacrosse player or you're a lacrosse coach, like you have to strive toward excellent lacrosse, not Christian lacrosse, right?
Yeah.
So the strive is worth it. But the motivation behind it is where it comes, and that like the prize is the same earthly prize, but the long-term benefits, even in business, like athletes are more employable. Like they know how to work with people. They know how to work hard in the dark. They know how to show up on time, hold each other accountable. Like there are things that you get as a life skill from pursuing athletics at a high level that for sure has value. Just as a dad, like I had connections and relationships with my kids that I might not have had. You know, regret to inform that if one of my son was like super passionate about the trumpet, I would have been, hey man, that's awesome, man. Let me know when your recital is. Like that's a different connection between a dad and a kid.
Yeah. Jazz hands can't bring a dad and son together.
I probably could come it together, but you know, and then you know, I'm guilty as charged on having kids that play basketball versus a son that played offensive line. I played basketball, so I have that natural connection and relationship is good. But then also the pressure and like no one has seen me play; they only see my kids play. So it's this drive where I can watch my son play offensive line, and I don't quite have the same understanding of what he does, and so that is a little bit different. But worth the pursuit, the relational aspect, the social aspect, obviously the physical running around, getting off the couch, getting your kids involved in thing is super healthy. But I think we're talking on this topic about how do you know when it's gone too far?
Yeah, yeah, but I also think it's important to reference because I think you can't really have that conversation without talking about, all right, well then tell me what is the healthy perspective of this, and is there any good to sport? And I think you just unpack some. Would you add anything to when you think of why God gave us even competition in sport, why we have and frankly, people who are more gifted than other people, even people more driven than other people. Okay, both are okay. What is the it's not evil. There's some goodness found in sport.
Yeah, there certainly is redeeming qualities, and you spoke to many of them in the way that it shapes character and that athletes they become resilient people, employable people, problem solvers. I think there's a strong element as well with sport. It made me very willing to do hard work when no one was watching, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because sport is very honest. When you go out there and you compete, you're going to be able to tell the difference between who put in the real work and even the work when no one was looking and the extra hours, and who was out on the weekend, and I'm thinking of college soccer especially, and stumbling through practice or, playing poorly in a game. It's just a very honest expression. And I know for me, I wanted to be the best that I could be at something. And that was going to take giving more of myself than like pushing myself past when I thought it's time to quit. I can't keep going, in a workout or in a weight training session, or it was going to prove itself on the field. And so it trained me to be an individual that realized that hard work bears great fruit and great results. And the ability to be motivated when there wasn't a crowd there cheering or watching, but to be alone on the field at night, running sprints, this or that, was ultimately for my good. And honestly, life has gone on. I'm no longer I do play in a mixed sex adult soccer league.
Oh, I've heard.
On Sundays.
I've heard about this.
I have picked up the gloves again. No, it taught me that skill has carried forward in every area of my life.
Yeah.
That skill pours forward in my faith journey.
The discipline.
The discipline. When we fast, when no one knows we're fasting, when we pray in the hidden place, when we labor and make sacrifices. And so those traits, excellent, that come out of sport.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, everything: character, community, teamwork, leadership, discipline. I mean, those are all beautifully
the only other two advantages to sport that are the ones that we actually try to get rid of is risk and failure.
I was going to say it helps you handle defeat.
Yeah.
It helps you handle defeat.
Yeah.
But too many times you see parents try to remove that part of it. They only want to show the success and the ranking and the video, as opposed to one of the real benefits of that is there are things, I talked about this last time, there's things in my kids' lives that I certainly don't want them to fail at. Relationships, driving a car, things like that. But, 7th grade basketball tryouts, you know what I mean? What can you learn from that actually can help you in the future where that's a healthy fail. Mm-hmm. Sports can be a healthy fail if you allow it. But that is one of the benefits.
Yeah, definitely. How to lose well, how to hold your composure and character in the face of defeat.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, those are great point. What would be, before we get into landing and getting to the practical side of what would be, if I'm just listening to this thinking, okay, I'm listening to that, and I've kind of done this self-assessment, and I'm starting to realize maybe, maybe I overemphasize sport with my kid. Who cares? What's wrong if sport is my idol right now? Mm-hmm. What's the big deal? What would you say to a parent who's like, man, yeah, I'll admit to you, sport is right now on this big idol worship right now. And yeah, we're going through a period in my high school. So we're not, our weekends are spent traveling, doing travel ball, and we're spending more time doing these. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Who cares? You would say, cool. Or would you say, man, let me tell you, again, we'll get to the practical, how can I keep the right priority, but what's the downside to keeping sport as idol? What are the consequences?
Yeah, I think you have souls at risk, to be totally honest. You, number one, when that has become idolatry, when that has crossed the threshold, and again, I say this because, like we've said it a lot, sport's not bad, but if that's something we're pursuing, I'll go all the way back to the very beginning. It has to have guardrails. There has to be the parental or leadership love enough to holistically raise up a child and encourage that if that is a piece of the puzzle, but also make very clear to them the health of their soul, their relationship with the Lord, the variety of other things they are passionate and excel in. The holistic approach to raising up the child is very key. And when that is neglected and you think, well, I just don't care, I think there are probably tensions in conversations parent to child that probably aren't being brought up or said, or maybe are and are risking, I guess, connection there, healthy, full, whole connection. You're gradually training your child how to misprioritize their time.
That's right.
You may even be affected in your own marriage by the misprioritization of funds and money and financial strain. There are so many things that are affecting the souls around us. When we are training someone up or cultivating a culture or a climate in our home where idolatry is permissible, because that also greenlights other forms of idolatry that can become permissible, but that's a whole nother conversation for another time. We have to understand, like we would in business, like we would in many different fields, what we put our time, our energy, our money, our focus to is shaping and forming the culture around us. And there's a lot at stake in that regard. And when that type of pressure is put on a child, when that type of those lack of guardrails are there, I don't think it raises up a whole well-rounded kid. I think you're playing with fire in the very heart, the soul, the well-being of your child when that finish line comes to sport. And they're now in identity crisis and wondering what's next and how and when and where. And,
who am I?
And you're wondering, why is my child so far from God? Well, did we cultivate a missional lifestyle geared towards that as top priority, to love the Lord our God with all? Or did we have a family culture of sport was all?
Yeah.
It's very risky, but it's one of those things I don't think you see necessarily. You do see things short term, but you really see it long term. And we have to be aware of that and take action now.
Yeah. And I think you said something, and Mike, I'm going to let you add to that. You had said a couple great, I mean, I don't think, and you were intentional in saying souls are at risk. And I think that's not even understating it. I absolutely believe that. And then I hope we have parents who might go, why are you so far from God? Because I genuinely think you'll have some who won't even recognize that their child is so far from God because they oftentimes are the ones who've helped get them there.
Right.
You know, they look at them and go, well, your life looks just like my life.
Yeah, they too are caught up in it.
They are. They get caught up in it. So, asking that question at least implies they're recognizing that. And I would hope that they would, maybe get to that place. But I think that's good. Would you add anything, or do you want to just take a shot at that before we get to a few practical things here?
Yeah, I think we sound a little tone deaf if we're like, pull your kids out of travel sports and never miss a service.
Yep.
I think if I could talk to dads, quite honestly, and just talk about like the transparency and honesty of like having this conversation with your family, and asking some questions of your wife and your kids together as a family to talk about what are our priorities, what should they be, here's what's important to me as the head of our household. And I think like 30% of people say they go to church. Most churches now offer online, so you could do church from a hotel room. Fathers attending church is the biggest predictor of children making it a priority. And I'm even guilty of this myself. I went to church 3 times a week. Like we never missed. I did not play football because football was on Sunday mornings, and therefore football was not an option for the Walker family until you got to high school, which my older brother tried and was a special teams dummy and didn't play football very long, but loved it. Now my boys played football at school, but if that's the trend, that if my parents took us to church 3 times, I take my family to church most weeks, what are my kids like? That natural drop off is a reality. So having the conversation and prioritizing our faith as a family, and church is a part of our family, and Christian school, oh, by the way, is not a substitute for the local church and for community in that regard. So I think if you're there like, well, this is something I've not really thought about, or maybe I have been forced into a situation where I'm not really thinking about it. But no, I'm not pulling my kid out. Maybe the happy medium and what we're kind of convicted to do is like just have the conversation, like think about priorities as a family, maybe write them down and have that conversation about, how could we make this more of our priority in our family, and maybe give up a little or decide what we're going to do and what we aren't and set some standards. That's kind of where I lean on that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important you mentioned we're really not saying youth travel sports are bad and evil and your kids should never play them. I hope nobody gets and says, well, yeah, but I think it's important you mentioned that. Now, we're not just saying just because they're offered doesn't mean your kid has to play them, because that's the other assumption is, well, every kid plays them, so my kid has to. Well, no, he actually doesn't have to. And especially when some of these kids are doing sports for their parents because their parents are like, well, you're going to do this. They do that. They would never come, but that's the reason. It's why the kids who quit at 13 quit, because they weren't doing it for the love of the game anyway. But I do think it's important. We're not saying that you didn't miss. I've missed church before, and I didn't play youth sports, and I don't play youth sports now, and I'm in full-time Christian service, and I've missed it for traveling on a trip or
traveling to see a Michigan football game. Maybe
did I go? I went on Saturday. Did I make it back? No, we got up and flew on Sunday. Didn't go to church Sunday morning. Probably listen to a great podcast. So but I'm not. I'm not saying certainly that if you miss a church service, sports are your idol. You love, sport more than not at all. That I think that's really important to mention. However, there are vast extremes, and it's the motives and priorities and structure and habits we're making that I think you rightly identify. It's a bigger deal than we're willing to admit, and we're afraid of the cultural pressure and our friends, the pushback we'll get if we take some weird countercultural stand on something that we're kind of like, well, our kid's really not good enough. Like, we're self-aware. He's not going to play the next level. So you can play high school sports. Oh, you want to do year-round travel and no. Like, we're the parent, and we're going to make the choice. You're not doing that. And that's okay if you're that parent too, to say no to your kid.
And there's a both and approach too, and I actually kind of take it personally, where like you don't want to substitute organized play for the work. And so is there opportunities to allow your kid to be challenged from a competitive standpoint in games and leagues without replacing the work? And so you could put a schedule out where maybe your son is on one team, not three, and then you replace that other team with actual work, whether it's a trainer or just hard work in the garage or take them to the gym or get them out and like do the work, especially if they're young, where now family activities, church activities, school activities fit into their life because they're not scheduled by this outside transactional exchange, play for work.
Yeah, you've got to be at this game.
That's also a happy medium where you can do the both and. It's like push them as hard as you can and as hard as they want to be pushed based on their love of the game and their desires, but also I don't think it's less of a commitment. It actually could be more of a commitment if your family is scheduling, not being dictated by an outside organization, scheduling it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's even a whole component. We probably don't have time on this podcast, but there's a whole component that we haven't touched on yet too of God's instruction of Sabbath rest as well.
Yeah,
and we're talking about kids injured and burnt out and Tommy John surgery at age 9 and all of this. Yeah. And sport does have the ability, when it is imbalanced, when it is the priority, we talked about souls at risk. You're not training your children or your family to embrace what it means to be still, to rest, to let your body rest, to let your body recover. Our weekends are full of sport. We're just one thing and this the whole weekend. And so, walking a life of faith isn't even just about church attendance by any means. Actually, there's plenty of people in church and are not walking robust lives of faith.
Correct.
But these rhythms, these understanding of God's way and his nature for our good and for our thriving, they all center around a good sense of, again, holistic balance and healthy approach and guardrails. And so, yes, I agree with that if they're in 3, maybe you tear it down to 1. But I would also say I love what you mentioned about the father sitting down saying, as a leader, as the coach, really, of the family team, here are the priorities, here are how we need to work it out. I would encourage parents to also welcome their children into that conversation.
Yeah, true.
Either number 1, to hear, I feel totally overwhelmed and dad wants me to, let them feel safe to express the challenges, or to what you said, Steve, let them in, hear them out, and be willing to tell them no. Be willing to say, if some are struggling, hear that. If some are, I want to do this and I got to do that and that, have the gusto as the father, as the parents, as the leader to say, well, listen, I hear you and I know all your friends are on all 3 of these teams. And I know you think you might miss the college scholarship or this or that if we don't do this. But listen, God's hand is on our lives. He's going to lead you and move you where he intends. We're going to put some regulations and boundaries around what we're doing and how much you're doing for your good, and enter into those types of conversations.
Yeah, love it. That's some great stuff, and which transitions us into just this: what can I do as a parent? If I'm listening, maybe I'm a younger parent. And a lot of our listeners are, and they're not all in. They haven't established an entire, they haven't hired the agent yet. Like some of the others have, but maybe. What are the few things that you can do that keep everything in check? Because we're not saying, well, get your kid out of all sports and no travel sports and no team sports, and they just need to go to church 6 times a week and that's it. You know what I mean? And spend time. Certainly not. But what is the balance for that? And I think we're all in agreement. We have to prioritize keeping Christ first above all. I mean, his prioritizing that. Our kids need to know and see sport does not dictate. We actually are like, but we had that late night on Saturday night coming home from the tournament. You mean we have to get up? Yep, we have to get up and go to church. We'll go to the late service, but we've got to be disciplined in. It's not just about church. It's about what going to it means for our family and the Word of God and support. So I think we have to prioritize that. And then within the sport, it's focusing on obviously character development, using it for things like that's more important than the trophy. Then every kid gets a ring now. Just for being in a tournament, you get a ring. You don't even have to win the tournament.
Oh, my goodness.
It's true. We have kids who have never won a baseball tournament, and they have 5 rings that they've earned from being in the games just for showing up. And I'm sorry, but and I've seen dads throw those rings out like my kid's not getting that, like he didn't earn that. I say, fist bump to that dad. I just think it's great when you take away the kid. Like, you got to earn a ring, man. You don't just get a ring for showing up on doing that. But I think you mentioned maybe about the identity piece. We've got our kids need to hear from early on. They are not their sport. They are not,
their wins
and
or losses.
Yeah, it's about establishing early their identity as in Christ and His Word, what He says about them, not what their coach says, not what even we think and struggle with. They need to experience that identity. Then, I think the habits, I think it's interesting. I think you shared in your kind of home growing up, like, yeah, you were driven to a lot of it, but it was more like, hey, your parents were like, well, we go to church on Sunday and we're going to, like, the things you do aren't going to impact that. And those were just modeling a healthy kind of perspective, and that's everything, including what I'm guilty of, complaining about refs and screaming from the stands and acting obnoxious I've been guilty of that. I've been thrown out of a volleyball game.
Oh, my word.
It's a true story. It's a different podcast. Now, it was a major misunderstanding. I will, and my wife would tell you because she was the coach of the game. And in order to finish the game, the official said, he didn't know who I was, that man will leave or we can't finish this match. And he pointed at me. And she was like, well, that's my husband. And he said, I don't care who he is.
Get him out.
He either goes or we forfeit this match. So I just said, but anyway, it was a complete misunderstanding, as it always is,
sure,
of course.
It was.
But it's a funny story, actually. I'll tell it another time. And then I love this thing, using sport as discipleship.
Yeah.
I think the properly managed home, mom and a dad say, all right, how are we going to utilize this sport to disciple our kids?
I would even stretch that further into a properly managed home, and a healthy faith life cultivated in your child can raise them up to be a disciple maker in the sports
multiplier
area. I'm
Love it.
heavily involved personally. It's been a part of my life for 23 years because it impacted me when I was in high school, and I've served and spoken for Fellowship of Christian Athletes for 14 years. I've traveled all over the world with them. Sport is a beautiful thing for community and for fellowship, and to be amongst those who believe and those who don't.
Yeah.
Now, here at Mount Paran on the teams, we're part of a covenant school, and most are going to have familiarity with the gospel. A lot of the travel teams kids go on to or otherwise, you're getting a real mixed bag. If you are properly and healthfully training up your child in the home, and sport is awesome for them and healthy, and they're not feeling crushed by the pressure of mom and dad or burnout by all the, you have the ability to raise up a disciple maker who can go onto these teams and be in the front lines really for the kingdom, and exercising that missional heart, even with, the volleyball team, where they're praying for teammates, where they're sharing the gospel, where they're even goodness, I've just seen it so many times. That even creates an avenue where maybe there are teammates on your child's team who don't even have godly mothers or fathers at all. They're crushed under the weight. They're suffocating under sport. And it opens a door for you to become an adult that's even able to speak into their life, to pray over them, to model a different thing. So sport does have a beautiful redeeming quality of being a place your child can practice what it means to live on purpose and live on mission. And that's going to come from a healthy child, not a child burdened and fatigued and overwhelmed, and sport is God. Yeah. That's going to come from a healthy child who understands the Lord my God has given me these gifts and skills. This is like a mission field for me. How awesome, because I'm 12. And let me talk to mom and dad. Let me pray with them, and let me go into that space and like make a difference. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Man, that's good. That's good. Mike, do you have anything closing?
Professionally, obviously my work here at Mount Paran as athletic director is help coaches realize the discipleship opportunities. But then, as a parent, advice would just be to, coach and correct the intangibles like you would the skill. I'm kind of on a reaction pitch right now where, some of the glorification of sport is after like what we see on TV. You point at your own name or shoot a bow and arrow in the sky. So like as a parent, are you celebrating that or kind of correcting the glorification of self? And then the opposite is true is when you are victimized by a bad call or a bad play, do you go palms up and let everyone know that it's not my fault? If you're watching on the camera, it's, the basically like, what did I do? Or like, why did you throw the ball out of bounds?
Yeah.
And then win the car ride home. I mean, she talked about that is, is there a silent treatment or is there a line of questioning where like, hey, did you have fun? Tell me the best part. Tell me the best part about the game. Because you could be up there seething because your kid got 2 minutes. And they totally understand why they got 2 minutes, and they're super happy for their teammate. And they actually had a great time playing in those 2 minutes, and they won the game. And they just had a dance party in the locker room, and like your total mood killer getting in the car where they actually enjoyed their athletic experience, and you're killing it because you're still upset about something that you watched. So ask more questions than you make statements, and learn how to win that car ride by asking like, hey, how would you assess your effort? Or, what was an opportunity where you maybe missed on having the right attitude? Like there are questions that you could ask to win that car ride which lead to discipleship moments as a parent. And now you're participating in your kids' sports through their development, not just, overemphasizing performance, which then bleeds them to, well, my worth is my performance because you have the car ride that's really fun because you pitched a shutout and beat a good team, or you gave up a bad goal and it's a total different experience that indirectly communicates value and worth and importance based on performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
I think that's also, I'm just going to add the quickest thing at the end here. Yep. I know we're short on time, but that is also such a reflection too. It should be not an indictment, but help us as parents to search our hearts too, because the same should be about our kids' grades. The same should be about our kids in other areas. Are we putting a pressure on them that performance signifies their worth, or is it conversation and we're helping them develop? And you mentioned this at the very beginning, Steve, so I didn't want to miss it. For any young parents with very young kids, I myself, my oldest is only 4th grade, and then I have 3 under that. Let it be this beautiful season. Yes, you kept saying elite athlete. I don't know if I've ever put the word elite in front of my own name, but I'm going to say it.
No, you didn't.
You said
I don't think you did, but I know I've read that. Yeah. I know I've read that about you. So yeah, I don't think you said that.
Well, I'm saying it now.
Yeah. I mean, you
declared it.
You can.
But I think a lot of people would think, "Oh, come on. You did this, so what are your kids going to do?" They ask all the time. I mean, my 4th grader is 5'4". She's tall.
Yes.
My kids are tall. So people all the time, oh, sport, and soccer. That is, in our home, there is a peace and a freedom. What do you enjoy? What do you like? What are you interested in? And I think for any previous sport parent, like resist the urge to vicariously live through your offspring, because you're still begrudging that you lost the state championship in that high school game. even though your belly's hanging over your pants now and that's all done. Like, let your child flourish and develop. My 5'4" fourth grader, she enjoys art. She likes ballet. She likes things that are equestrian. Like, she has such different interests. And the more a parent can pull back and let a child flourish and discover their interests and their passions for as long as possible, in my opinion, for as long as possible, I think is really healthy. And I've at least seen my own kids not carry that. They know about mommy's soccer, but it's not like, then I need to da-da-da.
Yeah, they're not wearing like my mom's an elite athlete shirt.
No, but they might now.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Maybe,
enjoy your children.
Do that. Well, I appreciate both of you being on, and I appreciate you guys listening, especially those of you that might have your belly hanging over your pants right now.
Sorry,
listening.
Guys.
No,
Neither
that's okay.
of you do.
No. But Mo, Mike, thank you guys for being on another episode. I think this will be a great one. Yep. And I want to thank you all for listening to another episode of From the Mount.